If you want to get into law enforcement, you know that there's a guarantee there's always going to be those negative coworkers. Hey, what's going on? My name is Scott. I'm a former police officer, and I received a question the other day on the channel. Can you do a video on dealing with the negative energy from haters? Some coworkers and others have said some sly remarks about the career field and people who want to join it, and I'm curious on how to navigate those conversations. That's a good question. I can tell you my very first year, I made a bad mistake because no one really told me, hey, stay away from the negativity, and I got pulled right into it. A few negative officers led me to believe that the police department where I worked was a sinking ship, and that negative influence led me to make a negative decision, and I left and I went to work at a smaller agency in a neighboring town. Huge mistake, and I realized it 3 months working into that new agency, so I reapplied to come back to the hometown department, and fortunately, after begging and 8 months of waiting, they took me back, and I never let the negative officers get a hold of me again. Obviously, I don't want you to get to that point, but here's the deal. You have to be intentional and vigilant when it comes to not getting sucked into the negativity, because our brains naturally gravitate towards and focus on negativity. So I want to start out by saying that a former police captain of mine once told me, Scott, when that negative talk starts, you get in your police car and you drive off. Now, obviously, that's not always something you can do. So in the meantime, and looking long term into your police career, here's what I would suggest. The first thing is, don't put any expectations on the negative coworkers. They are who they are. Can you be a light and good inspiration and influence later down the road? Yeah, but immediately you're not going to change them. So you can't, one, get sucked into it, two, expect them to be different. Don't put any expectations on them. This is the same for micromanagers. Like if you're working with someone and they're a micromanager, say your sergeant or lieutenant or captain or whoever is a micromanager, they feel the need to be in control, and you can't put expectations on them that they're going to show up the next day and be that leader that the department needs. Probably not going to happen. I'm not excusing the negativity, not excusing the micromanaging, but when it comes to what you can control, your expectations, I hope you get what I'm talking about. You have to realize their negativity is because they're not happy. Wow, you're a genius, Scott. Look, I know that statement on the surface sounds way too elementary, and I just insulted your intelligence. Here's what I'm talking about. Don't take it personal. Like when the person constantly complains about the job, or they're saying anyone else wanting to get into the career is an idiot, that doesn't have to become your perception, your reality, and your way of looking at things. Don't take it personal. Instead, what you can do is focus on your goals, your mission, and what you can control while you're working in law enforcement. Because I believe that law enforcement is a career where you don't get what you want. There's so much outside of your control that you don't always get what you want. You get who you are. Because there could be two cops or more, obviously, at the same police department who have experienced the same things, like the same incidents or same work dynamics, and all of them can have different perceptions about it. So I encourage you to stay focused on your mission, your goals, and what you can control. The next thing I recommend is to guard your energy. Even if you've, one, expected the negativity to be there, which it's going to be, two, you're working and focusing on what you can control. It is what it is. There's negative energy when a bunch of negative people get together, particularly in roll call, and the complaining and the gossiping starts, to which I'm guilty of at times, I will admit it. But when that starts, you have to guard your energy. So protect your mind and don't let this stuff pull you in. The next thing is, as corny as it sounds, be the light. I know that sounds corny. Be the positive person you want others to be, and you will get made fun of about that. It's amazing to me that at a police department, the person who's actually happy and enjoying themselves is looked at as the crazy one, and the ones who are miserable and can't stand the place and always find something to complain about, they're okay. You ever thought about that? So as corny as it sounds, be the light. And eventually you never know who you can change and who you can be a positive influence for. The next thing I recommend is practice empathy in the sense that someone could be negative. And I kind of touched on this earlier because of an internal struggle they're going through. Like they're not happy and they might be taking all their negativity out on the police department, as in complaining and gossiping, whereas they could be going through a very hard time back at home. You never know what's going on. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong, particularly if you know an officer real well, just to say, hey, you've been expressing a lot of negativity lately and I'm not taking it personal, but is everything okay? Can I help you out with anything? Do you need someone to talk to? And if they blow you off and say, then don't take it personal, but they know you're there. The next thing is set boundaries. I used to work with a guy who it seemed like his mission was to wake up in the morning, arrive at work, and then see what he could focus on that was negative and constantly talk about it. And particularly on night shift, it would be 3, 4 in the morning and we would be struggling to stay awake and he'd want to meet up and take a break at the office. And then all of a sudden the negatives talk would start. And if you weren't careful, it would go on and on and on and he could just drain you and you'd be like, oh my gosh, this is bad. You got to set boundaries. boundaries. And sometimes it requires you to say, hang on, time out, time out. We can't keep talking like this. And like I said, they could say, but at least you're doing your best to set boundaries. The next thing is, if someone comes to you and they want to vent, or they're already venting and complaining, then you can ask them the question like, are there any solutions to this? Do we have to talk about the problem, or can we focus on solutions? How can we go about looking at this a better way? These kind of things point towards, well, like I said, solutions. And therefore, you're not focused on the problem, because if you're focused on the problem, you're only going to get more of the problem. If you're focused on whatever's bothering you, it's just going to grow. And unfortunately, the negative officers, they don't get that. They think if they complain that much more, they'll feel better and things outside of their control will change, which is not the case. The next thing, and I already kind of touched on this, is do not feed the gossip. I've been guilty of it, and pretty much everybody else has as well. Of course, it's easy to complain when there's a policy you don't agree with, or a lot of steps and procedures are added to something, making it more complicated, that much more of a headache. But you want to do your best to be self-aware and catch yourself and not feed it. Instead, redirect the conversation, or as I mentioned earlier, tell them, hey, we got to focus on solutions because a lot of this is out of our control. We got to focus on what's within our control or how we can fix something. The next thing I would advise, which can be pretty simple, but you got to be diligent about it, is seek out the positive officers. Like, seek out those that are doing well. Seek out the leaders and spend more time with them. Have the conversations with them. We give off energy when we're interacting with people. So the ones who are giving off the positive vibes and the leadership lessons and stuff like that, those are the ones you want to spend your time with. So find the ones with a good mindset and stick with them. So in addition to all I've said, there's just a few more things I'd like to say. And one of them is, if something happens at the police department, say you have a career setback of some sort, or there's some policy that people don't agree with because it complicates some procedure that much more, or it completely changes the work schedule, whatever it is. Like I said, there's those things you can control and those things you can't. But what we can always control is how we react to it. And if you have the reaction like, they did this to us, then that can be a really harmful mentality. If this is what they did because of state law, or because they believe it'll make the department better and it's out of my control, that's a way different response. And you can put some meaning behind it and focus on how you're going to navigate going forward. I'll never forget a time when I was in the Marine Corps and unit morale was not good at all. We were very frustrated and a lot of us were complaining about stuff. And I was a sergeant. I shouldn't have been complaining as much as I was, but I was engaged in it. And a first sergeant, who to this day was one of the best Marines I ever learned from, he walked in and he said, look, you're going to be dealing with this. You got to take it and make the most out of it, because regardless, you're going to be right in the middle of it. So he basically told us, work on your mindset. This is going to happen. Work on your mindset, because you can't change anything about it. So help yourself develop some mental toughness to rewire your mindset and constantly shift your mindset to navigate the negativity from others, in addition to things that are beyond your control. And to wrap it up, I just want to say that always find something in your life that you can attach meaning and gratitude for, whether it be your family, your health, whatever it is for you. Put meaning to it and let that be an anchor to say, you know what, things are going to get bad, but I can find gratitude in this and meaning in that, and still focus on your purpose and your passion and how you are as a person and who you are as a person. Because when the job's no longer there, you can take these aspects and apply them to your life after the job, where there's probably going to be negative people in whatever next chapter as well. And last but not least, don't stop taking care of yourself. Seriously, physical fitness, eating well, getting as much sleep as you can, or the best sleep that you can when you do have time to sleep, your spiritual life, all these different things. When you take care of yourself, you're equipped that much more to handle the toxicity that can happen within the four walls of the police department and never stop growing as a person. And yes, I'm now interrupting my own video because I realized after editing the first draft, I did not address the aspect of the comment when it came to officers making sly remarks about people who want to get into the profession. Here's my opinion about that. I would never just flat out discourage someone from getting into law enforcement. What I would highly encourage someone to do is to make a very informed and calculated decision when it comes to whether or not to get into it. Just because a cop doesn't like it doesn't mean you won't like it. But like I said, it has to be a very informed and calculated decision. And I always ask that if law enforcement is so bad and there are police officers telling others, don't get into it, and these officers are not on some kind of contract, then why are they still working in it if it's that bad? I know this ticks off a lot of police officers, but I come to it as a friend having a hard conversation with you. And also I get it. Some say, well, I can't leave because of the retirement package. but yet they still have more than 10 years to go or whatever the case may be. Here is a quote that it hits hard for a lot of people, myself included, if I'm not careful. You get in life what you tolerate. Go ahead and click right here for your next video. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care and may God bless.